and welcome to Just Onside. On the eve of another new season, I did think that Leeds would go down and we'd be doing this podcast with Leeds being a championship side, but that is not the case. We stayed up and we stayed up quite comfortably. So I'm delighted to be doing this show with Leeds still being a Premier League side. So I'm happy. OS, how are you and the family?
Yeah, very well. Your family got back yesterday from a nice warm weather UK 6 week break for them. So they got back last night. I went to pick them up from the airport. So happy to have family back. Always nice. It's funny you mentioned about Leeds. Ayub, it wasn't lost on me that you're wearing white on the eve of the season to showcase your fandom of Leeds. But let's not forget Leeds have got history in getting back up to the Premier League and surviving with some gap. It's normally the second season where things start to fall apart. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, Ayub. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Right. Thanks for the dampener. No, but it's really exciting. I mean, it sort of we live for the Premier League. Now we thankfully had the World Cup, so that sort of made sure it wasn't a really long summer. But it sort of feels quite a long time since the Premier League was in action. But we're really excited that the Premier League is back. And what a I was going to say a mouth-water. I don't think it's quite mouth-watering, but it's certainly an interesting game tomorrow. Your beloved Arsenal versus Frank Lampard's commentary. So it's certainly, I think there's a great deal of drama to the game. I think it's going to be a foregone conclusion. So we'll start off not just on the game, but really your thoughts for the season. I want you to talk about the game last week, the Community Shield. I think it was an absolutely outstanding performance. I mean, as far as it goes in terms of statement performances and statement wins, absolutely blew City out of the water. So really, what we want to talk about this sort of on this episode really is first your thoughts about your beloved Arsenal, but really what you sort of think will happen in the season in terms of top four prediction, and always I suppose a subject close to my heart, relegation. So the bottom three as well. So firstly, tell me about your thoughts about Arsenal. You must be absolutely buzzing after last week. Now, albeit it's a Community Shield and sometimes not too much weight is given to that game, but I think the fact that it was Man City, there was probably more at stake than would normally be the case, and it was certainly a statement win. So take it away.
Yeah, you say a subject close to your heart, Ayub. You're right. If you did have a feature on Mastermind, although that in and of itself feels quite a long shot, but I would imagine relegation would be your subject matter expertise, let's say. Yeah, you're right. Listen, just very quick. I mean, it is the eve of the Premier League season, Ayub. It's always a little difficult, isn't it, to navigate the summer when there isn't much football around. You're right, there was the World Cup, so that gave us a nice little segue, a nice little break. So even more football, there is a larger conversation perhaps to be had, Ayub, regarding the fact that there is too much football in the calendar for some of these footballers. If you look at the fact that many of them got probably 3 weeks break. And when you consider the physical and emotional and mental toll of what the Premier League of just football at the highest level is, I think there is a larger conversation to be had for another day. You're right. It's a Premier League season 2026, 2027. It's shaping up to be a league with a lot of stories. That's what you need heading into any sporting contest. Storylines, a lot of upheaval and changes, especially from a managerial perspective at the top end of the table. Not always the case. You'll normally maybe get one change in the summer when you talk about some of the biggest clubs. Even De Zerbi, who came in, I mean, they're not a top six club as of now, but historically they have been. But even he came in at the last, as you would say, fag end of the season to save Spurs and save them in the league. But there's been a lot of changes, haven't they? Obviously, Pep Guardiola's finally moved on. You've obviously got new managers at Chelsea, new managers at Liverpool, change at Newcastle, which we've spoken about previously with Eddie Howe, that we felt it was coming to the end and what have you. So yeah, there's been a lot of upheaval, and obviously Michael Carrick has been given the permanent gig at Manchester United. The one club, I guess, that does have some semblance of continuity is the Premier League champions, in Arsenal, and that should bode well for them as they try to defend the Premier League title. Look, you're right, Community Shield, great performance. I thought maybe a fair scoreline probably would have been something along the lines of 5-1 or something like that. I think Arsenal were clinical, although they did miss a few chances, which you will always do. But yeah, they played with a certain confidence, as you would say, you was a little bit of arrogance. You could sense that a little bit of the weight had been lifted off. But for me, it's a friendly. I'm not going to read too much into it. You see the statistics over the last 20 odd years about the winners of the Community Shield. I think only one time has that particular team gone on to win it. So it doesn't really tell you much other than Arsenal probably rightly, deservedly are the team to beat. And I think that's pretty fair. And I don't think that's beyond us anything sensational in that claim. Look, I think in terms of the top four, we'll dive straight into it, Ayub. I'm going to give you my top four very quickly. Maybe perhaps brief reasons why I think that's the case. I'll then like to hear your, well, I guess we could talk a little bit about Leeds, but let's cover the top four. Maybe we should cover Leeds when we get to the bottom three. That would be more appropriate. But yeah, listen,
season's not even started, and the amount of digs that you've got in already.
I just know that we're one Leeds thrashing away from you losing your plot, losing your head. But no, look, I'm going to go for Arsenal as Premier League champions. And the main reason for that, Ayub, but I don't know if you disagree, but Arsenal right now, I think, have a squad where their first team is clearly capable of winning the Premier League title. I think their second team is pretty capable, I think, of challenging for the title. You can see that the signing of Ezri Konsa today, which will be finalised. They've got four very good centre-backs, Saliba, Gabriel, Konsa and Mosquera. Two great full-backs, one that you've got a lot of time for, Timber and White, Hincapié and Calafiori. So at the back, they've got the best goalkeeper in the league as well. So they're really settled in terms of having power, Premier League experience, real experience in that back line right now. Midfield, obviously, the addition of Bruno Guimaraes, captain of Newcastle, Rice, Arteta today confirming Miles Lewis-Skelly will be going nowhere. I mean, you look at the middle of the park, Zubimendi, Eze, Odegaard on the wings. You've got Solé, Saka, Madueke, Dauman, Gyökeres, Havertz, and I think there could still be some changes, especially in the number 9 role. You're right. I mean, they're the team to beat. Continuity. Arteta is speaking. Arsenal are behaving like a big club, if that makes sense. They're behaving like a club that thinks we've won it, our time is now. They're not looking for 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds for the next couple of seasons. They are buying ready-made top talent. Bruno Guimaraes, huge part of the Brazilian squad and huge part of, obviously, the Newcastle squad. Same with Konsa, established himself in the England team over the World Cup. He's a wonderful footballer, quick, pacey, can defend on his own. And that's what Arsenal need. They need defenders who can defend on their own. Yes, Arsenal do afford a lot of protection, but often you'll find guys at the back like Saliba having to deal with situations on their own. I mean, look, they are well placed. I think they will still find or looking to find a solution for the number 9 role. I still think there could be some movement with Gyökeres perhaps leaving. They are trying their absolute utmost to get Julian Alvarez in, if that's even feasible. If that's the case, I mean, you'd have to say that's a squad. That's a proper squad. That's a top, arguably the best squad in Europe. You could absolutely make that claim. I'm going to go for Manchester United, Ayub, as second. I think, yes, I think they'll still make a few additions. Let's talk about Baleba coming in, Ayub. But I just think that they have made progress year on year. Carrick is a safe pair of hands. Navigating the Champions League will be the biggest question mark, right? Does he have a squad capable of navigating that? And I think they'll find enough just to be competitive, and I think they'll still be fighting in amongst the top end of the table. Now, can they mount a title challenge? I'm not sure still that they've got the full squad to deal with that and the top tier talent, but they're a great threat on the break. They've got goals in that team. I still think they'll try and sprinkle it with something in the next couple of weeks. United will want additions at the back now to try and shore up that defence, but I think United will finish second. I'm going to go for Man City as third. I think they've got question marks. I mean, bless Enzo Maresca. He's already been referenced as the Timo Pep, which I thought was a bit of a harsh reference. But no, look, I think it's just, we remember this with England. If you remember the national team, when we went through those kind of times when Kevin Keegan was manager, it's always taking on that role. It's always difficult to follow the man. And now some might say, well, Slot won the title after Klopp. Well, yeah, but he still didn't have enough equity season 2 when he obviously lost his job. So it's tough to follow a personality the likes of your Peps, your Klopps, your Fergusons, and I think it's just a difficult gig. They've lost some players this summer where you're like, they're going to be a little bit short now. Anderson's probably going to have to hit the road running this and talk about Boadi, Rodri leaving. I mean, he's the best at what he does. I think that's a bitter blow to lose Rodri. That gives them great control. They've lost obviously Bernardo Silva. They'll really need to pick themselves up and go again to fight. But I think they'll find themselves in third. And the last place I'm going to give is Chelsea. Now that means I don't have Liverpool for the time being, or Spurs, who I think have made some great additions, finishing fourth. But I have Chelsea. I think the one game a week is real. I mean, they've got a good squad. I think they've got a good manager. I think he wants to be a coach rather than a manager, in which case he's going to have plenty of time to work with them. He's got two great talents in Rodgers and Palmer. If he can manage to find a tune out of them in sync together, I think Chelsea will win enough games to find themselves in those top four spots. There's still a bit of movement. You expect Fernandes to go. If he goes to City, that may change maybe perhaps how I see it, although his record for Chelsea with or without him is actually quite stark. Even though it's a small sample size, they've got a much better record actually without him in the team. Enzo Fernandez. But yeah, look, that's my top four. I have Liverpool just missing out because I think it's going to be competitive. I think it's someone's going to miss out. I think Liverpool, I'm not sure if they've just done enough with the kind of the fact that Salah's gone, Van Dijk, Alisson a season on. I think it still feels somewhat of a transition year. They need huge years from Wirtz and Isak. And Spurs, although they've done arguably the best business in the summer, I still think it's a big kind of bridge to, it's a big gap to bridge in terms of where they were. So that's my top four. You just conclude Arsenal to finish as Premier League champions. I think if they have the same level of desperation that they did last season, I think they'll win the Premier League title. It's about hunger, running. If they show that, they're the best team in the league, in my opinion. I have then United, City, and Chelsea rounding up the top four. How do you see it? Firstly, excited about the season, Ayub? Nervous? And how do you see the top four shaking out?
All right. In terms of my top four, Arsenal, I agree with you. Absolutely. I mean, I think they were outstanding last season. They've just got better. I mean, it's frightening how good I think they will be this season. So I think they are streets above anybody else in this league. I think they'll win the league at a canter. I don't think there's anybody who's going to be close to Arsenal. So I think that's a given. I think last week's performance, even though you're sort of saying it's friendly, which it was. I mean, it's obviously there is a cup, there is a certain prestige attached to that game, but the fact they were playing Man City, I think they put a marker out there, and we're talking about Declan Rice wasn't even starting the game, and this is a team that obviously a lot of their players, as were City's players, that played in the World Cup, so maybe still sort of warming up again, but they're going to be outstanding. Right, in terms of second, this is where I'm going to differ. I'm going with Chelsea. I think Chelsea will be serious contenders. I still think Arsenal will win the league, but if there's anybody that will challenge Arsenal, in my opinion, it will be Chelsea. I think they've got a coach that is building a really good reputation. They've got some really good players. And you're right, Fernandes. I don't think it matters. I think Fernandes leaving is not going to make an iota a difference, which is sort of bizarre because I think in the World Cup he demonstrated to me how good a player he is, but it's never quite worked, or at least it's never been consistent enough for Chelsea for when he's played for Chelsea. So I think Chelsea will be second, uh, third place. Now that's an interesting one. I sort of thought long and hard. I'm sort of going third spot with Liverpool. It's one where I mean I've got a soft spot for Liverpool. I think they've got a really good coach, but I'm just hoping it's not going to be exactly what happened to Thomas Frank. A really good reputation with a slightly sort of a team which has got lower expectation. This is a big step for Iriola. I mean, it's a manager it's a coach that I've long admired. But it's going to be a tough ask. It's going to be a tough challenge. Uh, fourth place, it's going to be Tottenham. After last season's debacle, I think they've made some really shrewd signing. They've got sort of Deserby, who I think I won't sort of say worked wonders last season because obviously it was by this sort of by the fingertips they stayed in. But I think he did enough to show that he's a coach with a really good pedigree. They've bought some really good players. They've already got a handful of decent players. So I think they will seriously be sort of there or thereabouts. I think they'll be fourth. In terms of Man United, I just think last season was to not be involved in any cups made it very easy. I think this is going to be a real challenge for Michael Carrick. So my top four: Arsenal will win the league at a canter. Chelsea will certainly be comfortable in second. Uh, Third place, Liverpool, and fourth, Spurs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, unless you're thinking that Manchester City are going to have their 115 charges verdict coming through and then hence get a points deduction, get relegated. You have both Manchester clubs finishing outside the top four, which
Yeah,
would be quite
yeah.
something. I mean, in that case, I don't expect to see Enzo Maresca survive the first season. I'm not saying that should be the case, but I just can't see a scenario where he finishes outside the top four and keeps his job. I mean, I just can't see it. He won't have the cachet or the equity of Pep Guardiola, so that would be quite interesting. But yeah, I mean, most predictions that you have been for Arsenal to win the league. I mean, if Saliba was fit and healthy from the beginning, I'd feel immensely confident. I think if they are there or thereabouts when he's back, which could be in perhaps 2 to 3 months' time, and I think that's why Arteta's made the reinforcements that he has, especially at the
Yeah.
back now with Ezri Konsa. You would think that Arsenal are best served to kick on. Now, injuries can play a part, and there might be a few surprise packages. But yeah, I mean, fair enough. Would be the big one, but they've made some huge signings this summer, and they're still on the hunt with talk of Savinho and Marmoush potentially going there as well. That rounds up the top four. You very quickly. I'm going to give you first dibs on this, given that it is your subject matter expertise. Bottom three, Ayub, normally just as exciting as it is regarding the top four, often more at stake. We're talking
Mm.
livelihoods and all the rest of it, huge amounts of revenue in terms of difference between the Premier League survival and Championship next season or the season after next. How do you see it? Who do you see as the bottom three? And not that these two subjects are in any way linked. Where do you see Leeds finishing this season?
Right. Okay. Well, talk about the bottom three first. I think bottom is not. It probably is the easiest one, and that's going to be Hull. I think they've just sort of not got the quality that's needed. Their acquisitions. I mean, they're buying players, but it's just nowhere near the standard that they need to be. So I think Hull, they'll be cut adrift. I think they'll be sort of by Christmas time they'll be way sort of below anybody else. The other two that came up now, I think Coventry. Uh, they'll probably finish second bottom. They've made some decent signing. I do like Frank Lampard, but I think it's just there is still quite a gulf in the quality and the class needed to stay up. So I think they'll finish sort of second bottom, but they'll be comfortably ahead of Hull. Now it becomes really tricky. I think Ipswich have spent massive. They've spent big, and they've bought some really decent players. I, uh, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Gary O'Neill, he's got plenty of experience. It's a manager that you liked, and you sort of felt he was harshly dealt with by Bournemouth, but obviously Bournemouth's sort of run of results under Iriola sort of proved that perhaps it was the right decision. But I digress. I've got a feeling that they'll stay up. I think they've spent big, and sometimes it doesn't always guarantee because you've got to spend wisely as well. But I think they've got enough quality, or they've bought enough quality. Gary O'Neill does know the league. He does know sort of scraps near the bottom. I've got a feeling that Newcastle might just occupy that third space for
Oof.
relegation because I think they've had a really torrid, turbulent sort of summer. Uh, it's and I look at the players that they have, and I don't sort of it doesn't fill me because they were sort of there or thereabouts last season as well. I mean, nobody sort of really talked about it. But certainly,
Yeah.
if you were in the relegation mix, they were a side that I kept on thinking we're going to get pulled in, and they sort of just about sort of escaped. And in the end, it seemed comfortable, but I don't think it was as comfortable as it looked. I've got a feeling that they're a lot poorer side this year. But that Eddie Howe's got him, and he's been there for a number of years. So there's going to be a seismic change in terms of obviously who's leading the club, and it may take some time for that new incumbent to put his mark down. And by that stage, it could be a little bit too late because this is it's a league without mercy. It's very, very difficult to play catch up in the Premier League. In the Championship, it's completely different. You can have a run of 8, 9 games where you can win 9 games on the bounce. In the Premier League, if you're struggling, it's difficult. So I've got a feeling that that third spot will be Newcastle. So my three for going down will be Hull, Coventry, and Newcastle. Uh, and in answer to the question about where Leeds will finish, there's a part of me thinking we'll finish in the top 10. But it can change very quickly after Saturday. I think it might change after Saturday.
I didn't know that you were partial to a bit of whiskey from time to time, but we don't, we digress. I'm not sure what's it. Not sure what's in that bottle that you've just swigged from. But anyway, I'll leave that for yourself. I mean, listen, you've got some bold predictions in your top four and your bottom three. You just to confirm, your top four is Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, and Spurs. Therefore, both Manchester clubs falling outside of the top four, and you've then got Newcastle getting relegated in 18th spot potentially, along with Coventry and Hull. Newcastle would be still, even at this stage, a huge storyline. I mean, they are an established Premier League club, owned still ultimately by a sovereign wealth fund. I mean, this would be quite the story. We felt that Eddie Howe was on. I mean, it felt as though it was coming to an end. It's been a remarkable summer for them, not in a good way, losing arguably your three best players, and there's still some talk that they may well lose Lewis Hall and perhaps one other. I mean, yeah, it's a very difficult summer to recover from. Now, the new manager will have his own style, and I think there'll be some exciting results that Newcastle are part of if you look at the manager's history and what have you. But it's a tough gig. It's a club that also, I think, has had its soul sucked out from them, so to speak. When you think about Guimaraes, Tonali, and Gordon, I mean, that
Yeah,
is a huge part of your kind of footballing engine that you've just removed from the club, and they moved on to obviously greener pastures. But look, let's see. It should be interesting. I'm going to keep this simple, Ayub. I've got the three promoted clubs going down: Hull, Ipswich, and Coventry. I've always felt, and I know we had a little bit of a change up last season, and that was good to see with Sunderland and Leeds surviving with some by some distance. To be fair, I think they were both. I mean, Sunderland was safe by Christmas. To be fair,
yeah,
and Leeds, I think, there afterwards, especially after that fateful change in the second half at Etihad, which I think still was the defining moment of Leeds' season, if you ask me.
yeah,
And I think if Leeds perform to the just very quickly, if they perform like they did last year, they'll be fine. I mean,
yeah.
it's as simple as that. I don't think they need to do any more, any less. They were competitive, I would argue, in about 30, 32, 33 games, and that's enough. You're going to pick up enough points if that's the case. And I could even make the argument that they were a bit unlucky in some of the games that they did lose. So, yeah, listen, I'm going to go for the three promoted clubs. I still think the gap is huge, irrespective of the signings that Ipswich have made. I think Coventry, Hull. I think Hull for sure. Just in terms of coming up the way they've done. If you look at their squad profile as well, you can make signings, but it's not going to. I can't see a scenario where they survive. Often in the good old days, if you think back to, let's say, 15, 20 years ago, when we were young kippers, I mean, you think about some of the Division One clubs, and you think about some of the grounds, the Dell, others, and what have you. I mean, the problem now is that all of these Championship clubs have great facilities. I mean, look at Leicester, third tier of football, won the Premier League, third tier of football now. Obviously, recently put up for sale. I mean, their facilities are insanely good. I mean, it's not difficult for clubs to go there and teams to go there. It doesn't feel a tough place to go. I mean, you could maybe argue that Ellen Road can still create that, but you're talking a wonderful football pitch. You're not talking the good old days when you'd go to play Wimbledon and what have you, and the pitch is all bobbly, the crowd's right on top of you, and all the rest of it. So I just think that really does make it just easier for that. And I think West Ham, you saw the price of that. Good old days in the Upton Park. It was a very difficult place to go, raucous atmosphere. The Olympic Stadium, the London Stadium, never quite felt like that. And they kept flirting with danger until now, obviously, that they have got relegated. So I'm going to go for the three clubs that got promoted to get relegated at you. But I think Leeds will be fine. I think they'll be finishing somewhere between, I think, 10th and 14th, which I think is fair and reasonable. I think there's some other clubs that you would still feel as though that you're still ahead of, be it kind of your Newcastles, maybe even like your Forests, even Fulham, Palace. You'd still feel as though that there's a few clubs that you're in amongst that you'd still be better than. So, and even Sunderland, I feel like will regress a little bit to the mean after what was a very successful season for them. So yeah, I think Leeds just below mid-table, and I think those are the clubs that will get relegated. Ayub, just before we move on, Ayub, to our quirky predictions, which we've got on, anything else to add with those kind of top four, top three, or just a sense of real excitement as the season's coming up?
It's always exciting, isn't it? I mean, at the start of the season, it's always it doesn't matter which season it is. You're always excited. You're always excited for your own club. Uh, we've made some really good signings. Obviously, your team has made some massive signings, but we've made some, I think, huge signings. I think all the signings that we've made now, normally, what you always want is an upgrade, and I think largely we've done that in spades. I mean, I think James Trafford. I still cannot believe that we have James Trafford, who I think will be not just the best keeper in the UK, but I think he will be the best keeper in the world in a few years' time. I think he's
Calm
that
down,
good.
calm
Uh,
down, calm down.
and we've bought this wonderfully young Bosnian left-footed centre back, Darek Murhanovic, and it's an upgrade on Pascal Strike. Pascal's Strike has gone to Brighton, but we've got somebody who I think is immensely better. I think his ceiling is much higher as well. And in the few pre-season friendlies, now again the pre-season friendlies, but I've seen enough. I mean, he's got a wonderful left foot. He's very comfortable on the ball. He doesn't sort of panic under pressure, and he seems the modern centre back, a ball playing centre back. So that's an upgrade. Harry Wilson, I think he's an excellent player. Now I'm just hoping that he's not done what some players do when it's their last season, where they're playing for a big contract. They know they're going to be free. They can command a really good big salary. But I think there's enough quality. I think for a side like Leeds to get Harry Wilson is
Yeah,
exceptional. It's excellent. And then we've just bought this guy, Nico Elvedi, a Swiss international. He's played in the World Cup. A real solid. Uh, Again, we've lost a player, but then we've bought a player in the same position. But it's an upgrade. So the four signings that we've made are certainly improving our squad. I still think we need two or three. I think we should be safe. I think what we have should be safe. We're playing Forest, so that really. I mean, it's a team that in terms of the cluster of teams that I consider ourselves to be part of. Forest is one of them. So it's a really interesting game to sort of see where we're at. But I do expect that we'll always be competitive. I think, irrespective of who we play, apart from, again, I think Arsenal, again, I think will be a team that perhaps will be far too strong for us and perhaps will win us comfortably. But everybody else in that league, I think we should be able to sort of pit our wits against them and be competitive. So I'm from a Leeds perspective, I'm very confident we'll stay up. Famous last words.
famous last words. But you're right, Harry Wilson on a free to land a player of that quality, and he looks at the landscape and looks at Leeds and says, "That's where I'm going." Now, like Leeds will be paying him some good money. Let's be very clear. But even so, he could have gone to a Brighton. He could have gone to an Everton, although he played for Liverpool, could be tough. But you get the point. Like he could have, in theory,
Yeah.
played for, at least for the time being, a better team than Leeds United Football Club. But clearly, Leeds United to land a player of that ilk, who had a very good season, very good
Yeah.
season last year, I think speaks to a lot. And then you mentioned about the centre back dominoes, with obviously Van Hecker moving on to Spurs, that left a gap at Brighton, Stripe moving on, and then you've obviously this guy's coming. So yeah, let's see. It should be.
Mm.
I expect these to be safe. I mean, could they
Yeah.
flirt with danger? Perhaps, but irrespective, they are not one of the three worst teams in the league. They've just got to obviously prove that on the pitch. So yeah. Anyway, moving on. We're going to go for, we asked one another, at least before that we discussed this, that, well, let's go for one quirky prediction that we think could be realized in the upcoming season. Ayub, if you'll indulge me, Ayub, I'll go first. So, one bold prediction for the upcoming Premier League season. This one isn't exactly a prediction for next season. I guess in some ways it's a prediction for the season after next. But I believe that Erling Haaland will be playing his last season for Man City next season, or this upcoming season. This will be his final year at Manchester City. That will be 5 years for him, Ayub, at the highest level, breaking all types of records in the Premier League. He's still young. Again, he scored goals aplenty. And if he finishes his career in the Premier League, he'll break that record for Shearer. No problem whatsoever.
Mm.
I don't see any qualms with that. You just have to avoid serious injury. He's a goal scorer. It's in his blood. It's what he
Yeah.
does. He scores goals in a very Shearer-like kind of comparison. That's what Shearer was known for. If you think Shearer, you think goals. You don't think heading or this or what
Mm.
have you. You just think goals. And I think that's what you think about when you think about Haaland as well, in amongst obviously some of the footballing qualities that he has. I just think it has the hallmarks. You don't have Man City finishing in the top four. I have them potentially finishing third, although again, transfer window still open. Let's see what they make of that. I just think losing Rodri, I'm not putting any stock into the Community Shield. That was a friendly for me. But I just think losing Rodri, I saw him when you watch him up close and personal, playing for Spain in the World Cup, the driving force behind that World Cup win, the calmness with which he plays, the composure.
Mm.
In a league, the Premier League, where it can be blood and thunder and things can be happening fast, and you can find yourselves in difficult situations. That's the kind of player that you need at that base, calming things down, controlling things, taking the sting out of games, which you know will happen. City are vulnerable. There's no doubt about it that City are vulnerable. You can't look at that team and suddenly think, yeah, they'll kick on and outshine everybody in this league. They are there a little bit vulnerable. Guardiola's control and hold over that club, there is no more. It's Enzo Maresca. That will normally lead to a few fallings out here and there. He doesn't have the same cachet that a Pep Guardiola has. I just see this could be the natural end. Do I still think he could be the top scorer in the league? Absolutely. He's still the best goal scorer there is in the league without a shadow of a doubt. But I just think that would be 5 years in the league, scoring goals aplenty. Probably could still return one day. Let's be very clear if he left. But if you look at also the landscape of in Europe right now, there are clubs as of today that will need strikers. And I think even in 12 months' time, that could well be the case. Now, if you look at Real Madrid right now, there's still some talk that they still need that kind of landmark, that kind of big eye popping number 9. If you think about, okay, they've still got Vinicius, Diamante, they've just bought Mbappe, yes. But they've been somewhat outshone a little bit, I would argue, by Barcelona, who've pipped them to Rodri. I think Rodri was one that they really wanted. I could see a scenario where next summer they go all guns blazing for Erling Haaland, maybe perhaps a £200 million transfer or what have you. Erling Haaland would have done 5 seasons with Manchester City, pretty much won the lot, scored all the goals there is to score. He may look at the direction of Man City, irrespective of the 115 charges and the verdict that may well come off the back of that. And I think he might just look at that and say, you know what, I'm at the peak of my powers. Real Madrid is a club that I want to play for potentially. I mean, even other clubs, if you think about it, Barcelona right now desperately trying to get a number 9 in. You know, they've been chasing Julian Alvarez. If they don't get Alvarez, there's some talk they might look for Gyökeres and others. I think Lautaro Martinez has been discussed. You look at PSG, yes, they've got Dembele, but they may well be looking to replenish in that particular space. So some of the biggest clubs, I mean, if Erling Haaland wasn't playing for Man City, Arteta would be backing up the Brinks truck to just
Mm.
fund whatever
Yeah.
needs to be funded because that's the only thing that Arsenal don't have, an absolutely ruthless number nine. So I just think not only internally could there be a scenario where you think 5 years, you're at the peak of your powers, you've done everything there is to win at City. I don't think he's finishing his career at City. I think that move to Spain, perhaps even Bayern Munich. You think about Harry Kane, there's talk about an extension of a contract, but he's going to move on at some point. He's no spring chicken. So some of the biggest clubs in Europe, Ayub, now and maybe even in 12 months' time, will be looking for their kind of star striker that can deliver the goods. And then there's nobody does it better than Erling Haaland. So I think this upcoming season, year 2026, 2027, will be Erling Haaland's final season for the time being in the Premier League and at Man City. And that would be a bitter blow for Manchester City.
I agree. I think you're absolutely right. But there's also another reason why. I mean, it's. I suppose. I mean, I can nicely sort of segue into my sort of quirky prediction that Enzo Fresco will not be Maresca will not be the manager of Man City next season, and that in part is almost sort of one of the reasons why I think Haaland's going to go. I think they're in a transition. I think there's a lot of the heart and soul. I mean, Rodri and Silva. I mean, these are two players that you cannot replace. You just cannot replace these players. What you try and do is obviously add to the group to try and sort of make sure that you don't miss these players enormously. I just don't think City have sort of brought in the players that they need because the last few years have been even under the legendary Pep Guardiola. They've not been the force that they have been sort of in years past. So you look at the trajectory of this football club, but it's certainly not been going upwards. Uh, and what's happened now is they've lost perhaps the most influential, and not just the influential player. When Rodri plays, you know that there's a calmness, but he's such a wonderful human being. I mean, I've all the interviews that I've ever heard, all the articles that I've read about Rodri, he really is a very decent, humble. He's got his feet on the ground, and he's somebody that I think a club of Man City's magnitude, you just need a player like that just to have the calmness. He's going to be a huge miss. Silva's going to be a huge miss as well, and I just think it's a club that's going to be really struggling. Somebody has to be the fall guy, and the fall guy is going to be, in my opinion, Maresca. If he lasts the whole season, I'll be amazed. I don't think he's going to last the season. So my prediction is Maresca will not be a Man City manager next season.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if your prediction comes true about them not being in the top four, I just can't see a scenario where he would survive. I
Mm,
mean, it wouldn't be seen as a transition year. They will feel as though they can win the Premier League. And listen, they may well win the Premier League, and credit to him if he manages that. But it is tough following an icon, a legend. They won't be the same invincible type team, I don't think, because of the fact that you're missing arguably the two most important protagonists at that football club in Pep Guardiola and Rodri. And then you think about the influence Bernardo Silva's had
mm,
on that football club for the best part of the last 5 to 6 years. It's just difficult. It doesn't mean that it can't come again, maybe the season after next, but you're now asking players like Foden to show that resurgence of form. You're expecting Anderson to hit the road running. And I love Anderson. I think he's a really good footballer. I thought for Forest he was wonderful. But again, Forest is one thing.
mm.
Manchester City going for a title tilt is completely another. And that's one of the reasons why I took a little bit of umbrage with some of the comparisons about Elliot Anderson and Declan Rice. Although there's a lot of nuance to the fact that Declan Rice has played a lot of minutes and all the rest of it, this idea that Elliot Anderson, for me, it's just my opinion, is on Declan Rice's level, absolutely not. Nowhere near. Once you've played the minutes that Rice has, and I'm talking critical minutes. I'm talking Champions League semi-finals, Champions League finals, Premier League title tilts, game week 33, 34, 35. It's those minutes are, you, as you know, are different. And whether that's at the top
Mm.
end or the bottom end, that's when
Yeah.
you really find out what your guys are all about. So yeah, Forest is all well and dandy, but there's a huge margin for error. at those football clubs. You win one game in three, one game in four. Fair enough. You keep those ticking along, you'll most likely survive. So I don't think he's at the ilk of a Declan Rice. He's got to prove that. And not say he won. I
Mm.
think he was a wonderful footballer, but he will need to prove that he can be a dominant midfield force for a title challenging team. That's the question mark. So let's see. But you're right. Question marks for City. Listen, question marks for every team. To some extent, Arsenal have never defended the Premier League title, at least in recent times, or under Arsene Wenger as well. So this is the challenge that befalls them. But there's many other clubs in transition as well, like you said, Liverpool, Spurs, Chelsea, United. So there's a lot of good storylines,
Mm.
I think, heading into this season. Ayub, I'm going to set you up for our last topic very quickly, Ayub, about the rule changes. This is one that you wanted to discuss. I've had a bit of a look into it as well. Quite interesting. So there's a number of rule changes, Ayub, that's going to be implemented this Premier League season, many of which were implemented and exacted within the World Cup itself that we've just had in Canada, America, and Mexico. We saw some of those on trial, let's say, at the World Cup, and we'll be seeing many of those implemented in the Premier League this coming season. How do you see it, Ayub? Do you think that it's a good move? Are there any particular rule changes that you're fond of, or perhaps not fond of, and are you confident that the referees, for whom you did have quite a lot of criticism last season, do you think they'll be implementing these rules properly and consistently? What do you think?
Well, in all honesty, I'm still trying to get my head round all of these rule changes. But I think the ones that I'm certainly in favour of is time wasting's always been a bugbear of mine, and I think we were on the receiving end of goalkeepers sort of feigning
Yep.
injury. So there's a couple of things, but I still need to have a good understanding. I mean, I'm still not sort of quite clear about in the box. Do you know when they're jostling for position? So it really is. I mean, I I'm hoping that you're probably going to give an overview which might give me a better understanding. But certainly, if there's anything that can help with sort of getting rid of time wasting, I'm in favour of that. So certainly, that to me is an element which needed to be introduced. And as I said, I mean, we were the victims of
Yeah.
goalkeepers sort of feigning injuries. So that's good, but it's the detail around it. So hopefully,
Yeah.
you're gonna sort of give me an overview and our viewers as well a clear overview of some of the changes and what they mean and how they're going to be implemented.
Yeah, absolutely. The incident that you're referencing is the Champions League, yeah, good old Champions League semi-final. I'm not sure, FA Cup semi-final, I should say, between Leeds and Chelsea. Obviously, went a goal down relatively early. I think it was 15, 20 minutes when Fernandez headed in, and then second half, as you were picking up a head of steam, I think it was the second half, if memory serves.
Yeah.
Sanchez then picked up a very opportunistic injury, shall we
Mm,
say, in which case the Chelsea fraternity were able to kind of gather the troops and what have you, and stall Leeds' momentum, which was building
mm,
at that time. Yeah, look, some of these changes you're right. The main intention of some of the changes is to, as the authorities have put it, is not so much to penalise teams, but it's to encourage them to get on with the game. So it's a subtle kind of nuance, but it's not a case of we're trying to penalize teams left and right. What we're trying to do is encourage better player behavior to improve the speed of the game. Now in Qatar in the World Cup, I think the ball in play minutes, let's say, was about, I think, 58 and a half, 58 minutes and a few seconds. That improved in the World Cup that's just gone by. And given there was less extra time, the actual in
mm,
ball percentage was about 60%. So 60% of the time, the ball was in play. And some of that is because of some of the rules that were implemented, which will be implemented. For example, counting down throw-ins. So throw-ins now will be sped along. You saw referees in the World Cup, Ayub, counting out 5, 4, 3 with their hands in quite a kind of extroverted ways to really get the players to get a move on. With throw-ins, you'll see the same with goal kicks. There's not been as much commentary that I've read about the jostling in the box. I think that's just going to be something that we're going to have to observe whether they're going to really crack down on that. What was interesting to me is similar to the World Cup, Ayub, second yellow cards will be automatically reviewable because that would obviously normally lead to a red card. So, given the gravity of the situation, that would normally lead to an automatic review. Now, what won't be reviewed is what a situation where a player is on a yellow card and then commits a second challenge where the referee deems it uh, not necessary of a second booking. So it's not that a VAR can get involved to say, well, hang on, we think you've missed something for a potential second yellow. It's the issuance of a second yellow card that will render an automatic VAR review. The interesting one that you referenced about the goalkeeper, you just very quickly, I'm just giving you some of the examples, is if that situation happens again, where Sanchez goes down with, and this is the key exception, Ayub, with no clear blood or clear injury where somebody's clearly knocked into him. If on that day Calvert-Lewin had just barged into him and he was on the floor, fair enough, he's allowed to get some treatment. But if it's one of those where he just randomly goes down clutching his calf or what have you, which to be fair can happen. Let's be very clear. It can genuinely happen. It doesn't mean that somebody's going to have to strike you for you to kind of pull up a little calf strain. But in that scenario, there would have to be an opposing player, so a player from Sanchez's team that day. So, for example, let's say Enzo Fernandez or Cole Palmer, who would have to go off in case of the goalkeeper. Now, the goalkeeper can't go off because obviously the goalkeeper is a privileged position and all the rest of it. He's guarding the goal. But in that scenario, Chelsea would have to, and by the way, they'd have to do this very quickly. Can't be done 30, 40 seconds because that was done to gain, let's say, a clever timeout to speak to the Chelsea players, stall the momentum of Leeds. What would now happen is Sanchez would go down. Chelsea would have to nominate somebody very quickly to go off for a minute. And it's a minute now, Ayub, not 30 seconds. That's very important. I'm coming on to that with my final example. And in that scenario, Chelsea would have to nominate an Enzo or in last year, Cucurella or a Cole Palmer to go off for a minute instead of Robert Sanchez. So the disadvantage now is that I think there's some league where they're trialing actually that automatically it's the captain who has to go off. So if that's, for example, if that's Alisson who goes down, that would be automatically Van Dijk going off. If that's David Raya going down, that would be automatically Martin Odegaard going off, if that makes sense, whoever's wearing the captain's armband. They are trialing that. But for now, they'd have to nominate a player very quickly. If they don't nominate a player quickly enough, then the referee can suggest somebody to go off or something along those lines. So there's a bit of room for chaos there if you don't. If I see, I could see a scenario where that suddenly starts becoming quite chaotic. The one that's for me interesting is the extension of the player having to go off who's received treatment at you. Last year, if you receive treatment, if you're not a goalkeeper, you go off for a mandatory 30 seconds, which often feels a bit tough because imagine a scenario where Leeds United are playing Arsenal and let's say last season, one of your players, not that he'd ever put a challenge in, but let's say Brendan Aronson dives into, let's say, Hincapié or what have you, let's say. Now, the referee deems it as though Aronson, it's a tough foul, but I'm not going to give you a yellow card, but Hincapié's there injured. Now, if he's injured and receives treatment, Hincapié's got to go off for 30 seconds last season. Now, imagine this scenario, and I want you to stay with me. Now, Aronson commits the foul. Hincapié is on the floor. He's not deemed it strong enough to give Aronson a yellow card. Imagine fouls happening in the first minute and a half. Referees are normally quite reticent to give yellow cards that early on. Now, Hincapié is there struggling with his ankle and all the rest of it, and he gets treatment. Now, in this scenario, next season, Ayub, Hincapié would have to go off because Aronson hasn't been booked. He'd have to go off for a minute. Now, a minute is a long time in football. If you think about it, I mean, it's a long. I used to count down the 30 seconds when my players used to be on the sidelines. I'm thinking this guy, because I mean, you know what it's like. If you're down to 10 men, I mean, especially in a crucial part of the game, the other team gets the ball, they stop moving it quickly because they've got the one man advantage and all the rest of it. Now, this next season, that will still be the case. Now, the only scenario where Hincapié doesn't have to go off is if Aronson picks up a yellow card, if that makes sense. So if Aronson, if the referee deems it necessary to give Aronson a yellow card, in that scenario, Hincapié would not have to be off the field of play for a minute whilst the play continues, because the argument is, well, you've committed a foul so egregious that we've got to give you a yellow card, and therefore we cannot disadvantage
Yeah.
the team that got fouled by them having to play a minute. But
Mm.
that puts a great deal of pressure on the referee, because what you can't then have is a lenient approach to yellow cards, if you know what I mean. You've got to
Mm.
be quite tough. You've seen some scenarios, haven't you, where there's a foul and that's forced the player to perhaps land a bit awkwardly and all the rest of it. And the referee's like, well, fair enough, guys, don't do that again, type of stuff.
Mm.
I think that situation would mean that the referee should be a bit more inclined to dish out yellows, because you can see a scenario where teams and fans are going to be absolutely aggrieved at, let's say, those common fouls that happen, but the player has got himself, you might see it on the slow motion replay, his ankle's being twisted or he's got caught underneath the player's body. So there is clearly some damage that's been done. You can see his foot
Mm.
angled in a few different directions. I'm thinking mainly ankles and things like this, where if the fouling player does not pick up a yellow card, you could still be at a massive disadvantage of having to go
Mm.
off for a minute. That's the one I think that I'm just not sure how I feel about that one, because I think there are all those grey areas in the game. So yeah, look, there are a few areas. What I would say is, I think the intent is good. I think there's an
Mm.
intent to speed up the game. There's an intent in what is a very variable sport. Football is the greyest of grey sports. And I think there is an intent to try and do the right thing. My worry is that because some of the rules are not quite as clear and as clear cut, and there is still some room for, let's say, abuse of the rules. My worry is that teams still may find themselves at a disadvantage, especially, like I said, with this
Mm.
foul. The only other one I would say, just very, very, very quickly, Ayub, is I spoke about the yellow cards. I think you got that. If a second yellow is dished out, automatic VAR review to check if that second yellow
Mm.
was suitable. They can't go back to the first yellow, but the second yellow, was that suitable
Yeah.
for a second yellow card? Where the referee doesn't dish out a second yellow, VAR cannot get involved. Again, you would imagine a bit similar to cricket. You would be more inclined. I famously always go back to that LBW for Leach, I think, or Stokes
Yeah.
was it, when Tim Payne had used up all of his reviews at
Yeah.
Headingley.
Yeah.
I feel like the referee is perhaps more inclined to give the second yellow, knowing that in my back pocket I've got the automatic VAR review. If that makes sense, you
Mm.
worry that the referee might say, "Well, no, I'm not giving it." And we've seen the incidents. The
Yeah.
referee knows the player's on a yellow. He's trying his best to keep him on the pitch sometimes, but at least we know that the howlers of a second yellow card will be automatically reviewed. I don't mind that too much. Again, my worry is that where the referee doesn't intervene, VR just cannot get involved, even though it
Yeah.
would be, to most, by all intents and purposes, a clear second yellow card. So again, intent I think is good. I think there is some detail and complication there, which I think fans might get a little bit frustrated with. Goalkeepers, again, if they're going to try timeouts and go down the pitch, I can imagine maybe it'll self-police and goalkeepers will not do it anymore, and that's great for the game. But I think it'll just need careful managing, and it'll be interesting to see how we get along. And you're right, you raised a good point. The big furore around set pieces, it'll be very interesting to see how they. I think they will clamp down on it. There is some talk about free kicks being given in dead ball situations. So if they see a foul before the corners come in, it might lead to a retake. But I think it's such a grey area. It'll come down to more how they apply that rule rather than the rule itself, if that makes sense. Like, will they be super zero tolerant,
Mm.
or will they still allow teams to get away with a little bit? There was an interesting conversation with Ange Postecoglou and the rest of the kind of overlap crew on this particular topic. So that's where we stand. How do you see it? Do you think, again, like me, the intent is good, or are you still concerned that it doesn't go far enough, or that at least it's a step in the right direction?
No, I think I agree. I think the intention and some of uh, the rule changing seems to be sort of well thought out. Whether it's going to be executed, because again, it I, I suppose we'll just have to sort of wait and see. I mean, the sadness for me is that ultimately, it's really, if we had competent referees, we wouldn't need to continually sort of have to introduce laws. I mean, and I'm all for this sort of obsession with uniformity. Yes, we want uniformity, but I'd rather just have a referee who's a good referee. You give him the opportunity that he referees how he sees best, and how he sees fit. Now, it doesn't mean that he's got to make his own rules up, but We've I mean, as I've sort of played football, I've played cricket, where you've got some umpires who are outers that always put the finger up, but you sort of knew that. Uh, there were others who were always a little bit more conservative, but that was fine. In a sense, it was okay. You could live with that. I would hope, or I would, all my wish always was get some really competent referees who know the game, understand the game. They know the dark arts, so they can put players up on that, and then you won't need to continually have to review the rules and try to introduce rules. Where we've got officials who are just, I think, are getting more and more incompetent, and this I don't think helps because, in a sense, again, it's you're relying on technology to bail out incompetence, which should never be the case. I mean, it's yeah, fair enough. If there's a howling error, fine. I'd still say let the referees referee, give the opportunity for a coach or a captain to have a sort of DRS, one or two, one in each half, and that to me is probably how I would love the game to be approached, where you really try and develop the confidence and the abilities of the referees, those officials in charge. You don't make it robots, where it's everybody is very sort of governed by very strict rules. There has to be a fair amount of flexibility, which there used to be in the good old days. Referees, there were some referees who were a little bit more lenient. There were some referees who were really strict. Players knew that, and sometimes maybe adapted their game based on obviously who was officiating. So it's going to be interesting. I like the fact that they're trying to sort of do something in terms of rulings to try and improve and speed up the game. Whether that's going to be happening, I'm not too sure. Whether the officials have the capacity and the capabilities, it's going to be interesting. But at least it's another talking point that we'll have, and it's going to be interesting to sort of see how it pans out.
Yeah, absolutely. You, but I just think football. Listen, it would be my eternal wish, let's say, to see football head in a direction where we start thinking about the spirit of the game a little bit more. What should be a penalty? What shouldn't be a penalty? What should be deemed as a foul that require? You know my old bugbear that results in a 12-yard kick.
Mm.
Stuff like that. There are some situations which just feel inherently unfair that you're going to create certain, let's say, punishments for. Football hasn't unfortunately addressed those issues. So we're still going to see some random penalties given for what is a non-threatening situation. But you're right. I think the referees, what you saw last year, do you remember? I think it was the FA Cup game. I think Villa, where one of the players handled it outside the box. Even Wayne Rooney made the observation that with the reliance of technology, the
Mm.
referees have lost a little bit of their kind of power to govern the game and to run the game and to referee the game because there is this crutch
Mm.
in the background that they've become accustomed to. And I think that is a real story. I feel referees at times are not clear where they should be coming in, where they shouldn't be intervening. VAR, what is a ticky-tacky penalty type situation, they'll sometimes intervene, and then next week you'll see another ticky-tacky situation where they'll say, well, it's the referee's decision. He's made one. It's not enough to overrule. That statement absolutely bothers me no end when they say, well, once it's given, it was never going to be overruled, or once it's not given on the pitch, it was never. We've seen examples of both, so don't give me any of that. I've seen scenarios time and time again where it's an innocuous situation. Referee's not given a foul, VAR intervenes. I've
Yeah.
seen other situations where it's the same type of ticky-tacky stuff where the referee has given a penalty and VAR deems it unnecessary to get involved. Well, it's a similar type of foul. One cannot be a penalty and what the other one can. So I think that's where it just needs a little bit of clarity, especially around these penalty type situations, because then fans are also leaning into the forensic detail and micro analyzing it. Say, look, he touched his ankle. He touched his ankle. I'm like, is that enough really for a penalty? I mean, is this where we're at with this beautiful game? So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. How the rules are implemented. No doubt there'll be major controversial topics along the way. Perhaps that's how it's designed to be, to keep the talking points going. But yeah, huge season. It's good to have football back. Premier League football, there is nothing like it, Ayub. Lots to play for my club, for your club, and there should be some fascinating stories along the way. So yeah, real exciting chapter, you'd think.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, in this the crazy times that we live in, uh, this is something which is, I think, it gives us a little bit of excitement, something to look forward to. Right, as always, a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for your thoughts, and the audience. Hopefully, we've still got viewers who are sort of tuning in. It's been a bit of a sabbatical, obviously, because the season was over, but we're glad to be back. Hopefully, we can give you some decent content. And if you so wish, put your predictions down as well. Let's see how they compare to mine and Oasis. So until the next time, hopefully Leeds have won. Arsenal will definitely win. But we'll sort of see you then. So look after yourself. Have a great weekend when it comes. See you soon. Ta-da.